One time in my 20s, I was dating a dude who sold his soul to the... And I didn't believe him at first. And then things just started getting super weird. So he would come over to my apartment. And one night we had like this fight because he was doing some unsavory things. He wouldn't get a job. And I was working like 60 hours a week. He came over and we got in this big fight. And then we were like, you know what, I was like, you know what, let's just go to bed. Let's like sleep on this. Let's talk about it in the morning. I shit you not, I lay down, I close my eyes, I look up, and there are 4 like black beings swirling around my ceiling. I'm like, what the world? I look out towards my window. There's a male figure standing at my window. And I'm like, you guys, so I've seen ghosts before, so I was like, you all are not welcome here. You need to leave. Get out. Blah, blah. And really creepy in this, like, really, I'm going to try to do it, voice. He was like, they're here for me. They're upset for me that you're treating me the way you are. And I knew at that point he wasn't fucking kidding when he said that. He sold his... So he, he's like getting really angry with me because I'm telling his friends, demons, to leave. And I look over to my window, or I look over to my door of my room that is cracked open, and there is, and I've never seen this before in my life, my blood ran cold. I haven't seen it since. This is the first time ever. There is a half man with like a goat's face or something with like the ram ears. I don't know what it was, like the ram horn things, standing with like red eyes, standing in my door frame, and I'm literally still getting chills to this day. This has been 10, 12 years, and I still am shocked by what happened. And so I'm like, I tell the guy, I say, I am so sorry. I love you. Like, I was mad. I didn't mean any of it. Like, absolutely. And yeah, when we broke up, I had to get a hotel room and stay out of my house because I was scared he would kill me, because he said he would kill me if I left him. So super good, but that is insane, right? Woo! Okay, this is part 2 of I dated a guy who sold his soul to the... And so a few questions from the last video. Did anything happen after that? Yes. Did I have an attachment after that? Yes. Did I get away from him? Obviously. Is he alive? Yes. But I don't know anything about him. Haven't seen him in 12 years since all this happened. Yeah, at least 12 years. And listen, I get it. Like a lot of you said, you would run the second that you heard that. Totally valid. If I was dating someone, I probably would have, but we were in a committed relationship. We'd been together for like 4 months. And at this point, we were talking about marriage and all that. And then I realized very quickly after he told me that, and then after this incident happened, that like I did not want to be involved with someone like that who would sick his friends on me. So that night, just to finish that part, because we have a lot of questions about that night, did they all leave? Yes, like immediately after he said, okay, everyone, I'm safe. She's not serious. Leave. Like, I'm the fucking threat. So they all just like vanished. Every few nights after that, I would say it was like every 2 or 3 days, they would be back and circling my ceiling, these black things. Okay. Circling. I never saw that ram horn thing again. Never saw that. Often saw shadow figures constantly while we were together. The scariest incident that happened after that, before we broke up, because like I knew I needed to get away, but I was really concerned how to, because he said he would murder me if we ever broke up, because that's not how this works. And he paid a really big price for us to be together, because again, he said he sold it for riches and like famous stuff, and for us to be together forever. And he told me that we would have 6 children, and that the 6th one would accidentally unalive him. I had to think of the word because I didn't want TikTok to flag it. Accidentally unalive him in like a tragic freak accident, and the whole family would be there. He said it would maybe be like a boating accident or something along those lines. It would be outside. That's what the schmevel told him. So, okay. So I know I'm knowing I need to get out of this relationship, and if you've ever left an abusive or really toxic relationship, you know how hard it is to just like jet. Like he had a key to my house, like all these things. So long story short, I know this has to end. He starts like doing some stuff with music because he wanted to be in the music industry. So he's out of town. He's like in Nashville or something. And I'm like, perfect. This is a perfect opportunity. And so I am at my house, and we got in a fight on the phone. And then I'm like, what? Okay. So I get off the phone. It's like 2 a.m. I go to bed at 3 a.m. I hear like the biggest crashing sounds. It sounds like stuff is breaking. So I'm like, what the frick is going on? So my daughter and I's room shared a closet. Like it was like a hallway basically, but like a closet. It's super weird. Okay. Just hear me out. So there's a point to this. From one end of the closet, you could open the door and you could walk to the other door of the closet and open it to her room, and vice versa. So she could go through my room. Anyways, she is still dead asleep. I like run in there because I'm like, oh my God, did someone break in or what's happening? Because this guy's psycho. And she's fine. She's dead asleep. Nothing's going on. But everything in the closet had literally like it looked like someone pulled down all the shelves. Like it was like, and so I just chalked it up to, okay, that's really creepy. That's weird that all that happened. And I just decide at that point, like I've already checked out the entire house. I'm going to go from the closet, her side, all the way to my room. So when I get in the closet, like I open the thing, I'm going, and something drops on my head, and it's water, but I know that there's no water source up there. So I'm like, what the fuck? So like I had my phone with me, and it didn't have a flashlight at that point. Okay. This is a long time ago. And I like just like click the screen and I shine it, and there's like this big like black spot, like expanding. That's the word, expanding on the ceiling, like of the closet. It's just like going like this. And I'm like, oh fuck. And so I like flung that door closed. I took my daughter and we left. It was like 3 a.m. We did not stay there. We stayed at a neighbor's house. The next day I come in, he's still gone, so I'm not like really worried about that. And he didn't live with me. He would just like come over and visit. But at this point I'm like, hey, like, I can't let you come over and visit. Anyways, at this point I go in the closet, and there's all this somehow that it was there, that black spot, and it was like molded, but like there's not water above that spot. Okay. People came and checked it out. They did cut it out, and they said that maybe somehow the electrical wiring induced water. It was very weird. They couldn't figure it out. It was unexplained. So they cut out the ceiling. Another story of our time together is that window that I was telling you about in my room. We were sleeping one night, and this is like before he sold everything, and there was someone standing at the window, and I asked him what that was, and he said he didn't know. And he went out there, and he was like, hey, is anyone out here? But obviously it was his attachment. So yeah, I think that's like almost everything. I don't know if there's any more questions, please let me know. I'm happy to make another video, but I think that's everything. Okay. So this is part 3 of I dated a guy who sold his soul to the long story short, a lot of questions have been asking me, why would I date a bum dude like that? I don't know. Ask the old version of myself, but this version of myself would never. But maybe I had low standards. I actually really did have low. The ground wasn't even low enough. It was the depths of hell, apparently. Long story short, he did have a kind of a job. He had a record deal with a record label. Okay. So we're going to leave it at that. No, I'm not going to give you guys his name. You don't know him anyways. He's not famous. He didn't get nothing out of this. I don't even know if this was real, or maybe it was some like induced psychosis. I do believe personally that the entire experience was real, and that he really did think that he did that. I don't know if he did, but whatever. Regardless, how did I get out is your biggest question. So, we had, after this whole incident, after the whole wall or ceiling of my house incident, things were a little quiet because I went to church, and I was going to church with my mentor like every Sunday, and we were reading the Bible together often, and I had a Bible in my room, and you guys asked if I cleansed my house after this. I did. And like I said, you guys were like, well, like, how did you get him to stay away? I salted the perimeter of my house. What do you mean? Like, he wouldn't even, one time I had picked him up because we were going to go somewhere with some of my friends. And again, remember, I'm trying to get out of this, but I'm like still playing the part because I want to be safe. And I was like, hey, I like left something at home. We got to stop by there real quick. He was like, oh, okay. And he like made this like weird face. And I was like, oh, what's going on? Long story short, I had salted like my doorway. And so he actually would not come in, but he didn't know that it was salted. He had no idea I had salted it, blessed it, rebuked stuff in the name of Jesus. I had read scriptures all over my house, whatever. I'd done all of it in my apartment. Okay. I'm talking sage, all the 9 yards to get this evil away from me. And I truly believe that's what it is. If, you know, a lot of you guys said he didn't sell his soul, like, okay, that's totally fine. It's valid if that's your opinion. But whatever he had with him was evil, and I didn't want any part of that. So long story short, he wouldn't come in my house anymore, so that was good because I didn't want him over anyways. I rekeyed the locks, so even though he had a key to my house, he couldn't get in anyways. So that's two of the things I did. I started going to church, and I started being really uninteresting to him because I was going to church, and I would talk about God all the time and how wonderful God is, and that God would like save him, and you know that he could really like come back to God, and God wasn't going to turn his back on him. And so he was like pretty much like kind of weeding himself out, right? Like he was, we weren't even seeing each other maybe like once a week at this point. Okay. He'd gone back up to Tennessee for something, I don't know, some show, something, whatever. And I was so uninterested. I was just trying to get out of this, right? While he was gone, he decided that we needed to do something. And he came back that Saturday. I was at work. It was a Saturday at late January. And he decided that he needed my immediate attention. And I was at work, and I worked disaster housing. So it was a category like 4 or 5 hurricane. I was on the phones, like call after call after call after call. I didn't see my phone. He texted me. He started calling my work number. Well, my coworker was there who also went to the church that I went to. And I had kind of like opened up to my mentor about the things that was going on, and she'd given me a lot of really good sage advice. No pun intended, but pun, I guess. And so he saw the calls coming through, and like multiple ones, and like every time that he would answer, the guy would hang up, but then like he'd call back, and if I answered, he would talk. So he comes over to me and he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "This is like my soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, and he's harassing me." And so he called again, and it was like he'd called like 63 times, I think is what it was. It was either 53 or 63, can't quote me on that, in a row. Okay, lots of times. Loony. Anyways, so I like answer, and I'm like, "Hey, like, what's going on?" He's like, "You're not answering me. Are you cheating? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're doing something." And I was like, "I'm literally working right now." It's really disgusting that you would accuse me of that, but I'm literally working. So and he was like, "I need you to get off right now. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you don't care about me. You don't care." And I was like, why are you saying I don't care about you? He's like, "Because like you're working all the time. You're going to church all the time." He's like, "This isn't working." And I was like, "Yeah, no, it's not working. Like, I agree." And he's like, "No, but we can't break up. Like, we're not breaking up." Finally, after like a few minutes of this back and forth, Chris, the guy that was with me, takes off my headset, and he puts it on, and he's like, "You're never going to call this number again. That's what you're actually never going to do. You're going to lose this number. If you come on this property of her work, I'm going to have you arrested, and you're going to be put on no trespass for harassment. We have enough of a case right here with the amount of phone calls that you've made to like get a restraining order against you. So do not ever mess with her again." And he hung up, and he called my cell phone, and he was crying and sobbing and all this stuff. And I was just like, "Please leave me alone. Like, I don't want to be with you anymore." Right? Like, I'm not interested. Sorry, it's getting dark, and I'm like trying to like not be in the dark. Like, I'm not interested in you. Okay. Like, I think that this has gone on for far too long, and I think we're on different paths. Like, I believe in God. You don't. I want a good Christian, you know, relationship. And at the time, I still believe in God. Just a spoiler, I believe in God. I do not go to church anymore. I do have Bibles. I absolutely believe in Jesus and God. But regardless, at the time, I really wanted like a good Christian marriage. Okay. So he's like, "You know what? I'm going to find you tonight, and I'm going to get you." And I'm like, okay. So I called my best friends and I was like, we're going to a hotel in this city. And I lived in Atlanta at the time, and I lived outside of this. I lived on the outskirts of Atlanta, but I worked in Buckhead. So I was like, we're going to go to the nicest fucking hotel in the city and we're staying the night. And so I went home, I packed a bag, I got my daughter from the sitter. It was a Saturday. We went downtown, we ate, we had a great time. We stayed in a dope ass hotel. And at the end of the night, like when we checked out in the morning, I called his dad because his dad was like lived right down the street from where his apartment was. And I said, I'm going to tell you one thing. If that man touches me, like it's going to be, sorry, I got a call. I said, if that man touches me, it's going to be over for him. And I am protected by God, and this is not happening. Like, he is really not for me. This is not for me. I don't want any part of this. Like, he's scaring me. I have a child. I'm not interested. And that's the last I heard from him, because his dad, I think, kind of like talked some sense into him, like, leave this girl alone. That's really underwhelming, but you guys wanted to hear it. So that's kind of how it went. And yeah, okay. Okay, this is part 4 of I dated a guy who sold his soul to the devil. Long story short, or short story long, yes. Has anything come back since talking about it? Yeah, kind of. I've been seeing like shadows out of the corner of my eyes. That's been really not fun. I haven't seen that in a long time. So this is probably going to be the last video unless you guys keep asking me questions. But beyond that, I will address the elephant in the room, which was how did I get rid of the attachment after we broke up. So there was one night where I was at my friend's house, and her house was definitely like haunted. There's some weird energy there. And we were having a sleepover, her and my kids, and 2 of our other friends came over, that we were all just hanging out. And so she and I were talking about like ghost stories, and she said that like she had some ghost stories, and my other friend Jamie had some ghost stories, and we were all just like sitting there. And I went to tell this one, and all of a sudden my knees buckled from under me, and I slid down the cabinet. Like I was like kind of leaning against a countertop, and I like slid down like that onto the ground. And so Jamie's boyfriend was like, "Cool, girl, I think you have like some sort of attachment. Like, we got to get rid of that." Turns out he had practiced under like a shaman, and Amber was like very religious. And so the 2 of them kind of like prayed over me and whatever. Well, while we're doing all that, the door, it starts knocking on this like door that's right. It's like a kitchen door that you would go out, and there's like a little patio. It has a big glass window. And I was so freaked out by that experience, because I'm still on the floor and I'm like weak, and I'm like, what? I've never even passed out before in my life, but I like basically like blacked out, and like super creepy. So there's no one at the door, obviously, no one that we can physically see. And then at this point I'm like standing back up, and I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, what's happening right now? And everyone's like, I don't know what is happening. Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, this is insane. And so then all of a sudden we hear my daughter say, "Mommy," like in this like really like kind of like she's scared. And so all the adults start like running, and she's fine. She's asleep. There's no one there. And yeah, there's some goosebumps for you. I'm like, what? And I'm looking at Keith, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at my other friend, and I'm like, what is happening here? Okay. So I look in the next room, because I'm like, surely like I don't know what's going on. So like we look in the next room where I was spending the night, in the guest bedroom, and all the blinds are open. The lights are on, the blinds are open. I had left the lights off when I was in the kitchen. I had turned them off, because that's just how I grew up. Like, you turn off the lights, okay? And they were all on. And now all the blinds were open, and I'm a weirdo about blinds. Like, they have to be closed at night. And I had closed them all because it was about to be night, and I was like, ooh, and this is in downtown Atlanta, and I'm like, no, we got to close these blinds. Like, what if somebody's, outside looking in? That's creepy, right? So Keith's like, okay, I need you to sit right here on this bed. We closed all the blinds again. We sat on that bed. He like cracked this door, and he was like trying to get rid of this attachment to me and whatever. So my friend Jamie gets so freaked out by this entire situation, which I would have too if roles were reversed. I would be like, I am noping the frick out of here. Like, this is crazy. So she's like, I'm done. And she like took a walk in the middle of the city. She like takes a walk down the street, and finally, like after like 15 minutes, I'm like, okay. He's like, I think it's pretty much gone. Like, you're good. Like, just keep praying. Just keep like going, and you know, you're good. And I'm like, okay. We go and we are like looking for Jamie, and she comes back and she's like, this is crazy. Like, this entire situation is absolutely insane. Yeah. So I think that's going to be my last video about this, because I have been talking about it, and I'm not interested in seeing any of that anymore, and I'm not interested in being a part of any of that anymore. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I will make a follow-up video, but I think this is the end of the road for me on this story. Totally comfortable answering this question. So how do you even seek that? So I can tell you what he told me, but I don't even know how that happens, because again, I believe in God. So I'm just going to proclaim that. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. Always have. Had a few weird periods in my life where I wasn't as connected. This was one of those periods, and then I got real connected real fast. It's like if you unplug the lamp and then you're like, oh my God, there's no light in here, and you plug the lamp back in. That's what happened. So it was oversight. Everyone keeps asking why I didn't call out to God. I will be completely dead honest with you. It was not my first, second, or third thought. My first thought was, holy fuck, this thing's gonna kill me. My second thought was, I'm being set up right now. This thing is coming for me. And then my third thought was, he's dangerous if this is the people, his friends that he's associating with. So what he told me, sorry, there's a weird car right there. What he told me is when I got home that night, my daughter was not there. So people keep saying like, your kid was in the house when all this happened. Absolutely, she was not. But I got home and he was at my house. He had come over and he was working on some stuff on my laptop, whatever. It didn't matter. He had a key, so he got in. I was a little shocked to see him, because he was like, he looked a little manic, and he was like, hey, I have something to tell you. And his eyes were like this big, and I can't even make them as big as his eyes were. His eyes looked weird, and that was red flag number one that I missed, okay? And I was like, what's going on? And he had this book in his hand, and he was like, yeah, so you know how I've been reading all these books. And first off, I knew he was reading. He was reading about like ancient Egypt and Sumerian texts and all these things, and that maybe should have been a red flag. Looking back, in hindsight's 2020, but at the time, I just thought he was interested in like history. I'm a history buff. I love that kind of shit. So I just thought he was learning stuff. He was like, yeah, well, I have been reading, and I did some spell work today that's in this book, and I sold my soul to the devil. And I thought he was like doing some weird bit, like, I'm very comedic. I love to laugh. So I thought this was all some big ass joke. Like, I was like, huh, okay. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And his eyes were like this. So he's like, no, I'm serious. And I'm like, oh my God, what? I'm like, well, how did you even do that? Like, that's not a thing. And he's like, yes, it is. Like, I conjured up this thing. We made an agreement, and I'm going to be rich and famous, and we're going to be together forever, and we're going to have 6 kids. And the 6th child is going to accidentally unalive me in a very tragic freak accident when I'm in my like 40s or 50s, is what he said. I was like, what? And so I'm thinking, I was like, he's off his rocker. Like, maybe he is just really stressed trying to get these albums done. Like, and he's like, he was losing sleep. So I was like, he's like deluded, right? That was my first thought. And so I don't know, long story short, to answer your question, I don't know how you do that. I'm sure someone could tell you better than me, but I can tell you that's what he told me, and that's pretty much verbatim what he said, but through 11 years of memories. So, yeah.